ready to go. But they stopped about 6 miles short because they saw a mountain range, and they decided that the mountain range would have been too treacherous, that the ice in front of it might have been full of caverns, and so they turned around and came back. We have ground photographs of these men standing with the mountain range in the background. The problem is there's no mountain range there. It doesn't exist, but it sure shows up in the photographs.
Maybe like a hologram or something like that?
Well, that's what we're thinking.
Yeah. Well, that would be an interesting way to mask it, wouldn't it?
Yeah. In any case, the data doesn't seem to back up the theory of the present idea that we float on tectonic plates on top of a pool of magma around a solid core. Our magnetosphere doesn't support it. The mass of our Earth relative to our diameter doesn't support it. The orbit around our sun doesn't support it. And some of the marine life data that we have doesn't support it. There's a species of seagulls that only exist in the Arctic area, but they don't migrate south in the winter. They fly north.
Do you think there's a light and heat source if indeed there is a hollow Earth?
Well, it would have to be. Now, the inner core, some people have said there's an inner sun in there. I don't want to use the word sun too loosely. We're not talking about a fusion sun like we have in the center of our solar system, but any body that would give off visible light and not going down into the UV range like fusion would, but somewhere in the IR range or high visible range would give off a nice soft glow, would certainly promote photosynthesis and provide enough heat for an ecology down there.
Now, when we're talking about this hollow Earth, the possibilities of this, are you talking about it in the physical, three-dimensional sense, or are we talking about something else?
Well, that's a good question, too. It is pretty clear that explorers like Byrd and others that were featured in works like The Smoky God made a third-dimensional trip, that they did not raise their consciousness or change the phase of their craft or anything like that. They just flew on in. Maybe they were admitted somehow. But then there is the idea, especially purported by the Egyptians and the Mayans, that there is a higher dimensional, a fourth or even fifth dimensional component to the interior of the Earth, and that third dimensional beings just can't behold it. We also see this in the UFO community. Real, legitimate UFO sightings don't have an exit for the craft. The craft just simply blinks out of view. It just phases out of view.
That's true. All right, Brooks, stay with us, because when we come back, I want to talk about the science with your investigation, but then we're going to talk about some real interesting things as well, like these UFOs that reportedly have been coming in and out of what could be a hollow Earth. Who do you think is in there? And what do they look like? We'll be back. Next hour, we'll keep Brooks Agnew. We'll take your phone calls, and then we'll have 2 hours of open lines, including that Jinx hotline. I'm George Norrie. I'll be back with you in just a moment on Coast to Coast AM. Hey, Friday, March 2nd, why don't you spend the night with me at the Verizon Wireless Theater in Houston? If you need more information, just go to KTRH.com. That's our affiliate there, the Monster Station, and find all the information you need. By the way, you can pick up your book if you want, Worker in the Light, at your favorite bookstore there or at Amazon.com. They're not selling the book at the event. Bring it by and I'll sign it for you. But I'm there for a special evening with KTRH. So come on by March 2nd, that's Friday, at the Verizon Wireless Theater. And again, you need more information, go to KTRH.com. The science of this, if it exists, Brooks, what do you expect to find? Different kinds of vegetation? Admiral Byrd saw, the woolly mammoths and things like that. What do you think's in there?
Well, now you're accessing the little boy in me. This has been such an exciting project to be involved with. To go to the North Pole, for one thing, is just going to be phenomenally exciting. But when you think about, okay, what's going to happen if you really do find an opening? What is the plan? How are you going to get there? What are you going to do? Well, here we're utilizing the only ship on the face of the Earth that's rated for passengers that we can travel on. It's a 450-foot-long, 23,000-ton nuclear-powered Russian icebreaker.
Jeez.
Yeah, 75,000 horsepower. It's the only craft that's rated for civilian travel that has enough fuel supply to go where we want to go. Well, in speaking with the expedition company, the shipping company, they don't want to take this ship into the opening. So the plan is, we're going to put together a team of 100. We have 33 scientists. We're taking 30 exopolitical people, many of them world-renowned. We're taking 3 separate film crews, visible light, IR light, and even UV, and we're going to shoot this documentary. And what we plan to do is to get the boat near where this opening might be, and I'm going to tell you a little story about how we're going to determine that.
Sure.
And then we're going to wait and see if we can get, and I know this is a very strange experimental condition, but we're going to try to get the consciousness of this boat to a high enough level that if there is an intelligent component that lives in the interior of the Earth, they will come out and meet us. And when they do, we're going to get it on film.
That's incredible. You imagine that? If this happens?
Well, I try to, but I'm really trying to be the expedition leader and not the expedition fanatic. I'll tell you a little story. When I went to James's, I wasn't even thinking about the inner Earth. I was thinking about speaking up there at the Earth Transformation Conference last summer. And my third night there, we were practicing meditation each night. I was meditating and facing Mount Adams, which is renowned for its spiritual component. And all of a sudden, this, well, for lack of a better word, a conduit opened up between the mountain and me. And I checked myself over, made sure my heart wasn't beating fast or my leg wasn't moving or any of that. None of that was happening. This was an external force, like a puff of air repeating on my chest. While this was going on, I'm hearing these sounds like singing, and I hear these words like peace and love and joy, and I think, wow, I'm really having a neat metaphysical experience. And then it ended about 15 minutes later, and the people that were meditating behind me had their eyes opened for some reason, and they said, wow, did you see that? I said, see what? They said, you had all these kinds of charts and graphs and schematics in gold that were appearing on your back and disappearing into your body. So it appears that I got some kind of download when I was up there. Now, that was Saturday. When I came home on Monday, I checked my email and found out that the current expedition leader had suddenly died. So I called the second-in-command, Rodney Clough, who I think has been on your program before. And I said, Rodney, what are we going to do? He said, well, I guess we're done. We can't go. And the expedition leader's...
it's over, yeah.
Yeah, he's expired. So I'll have to refund everybody's money, and we'll quit. And I said, Rodney, I don't quit. You know, there's only 2 kinds of engineers in the world. They're starters and they're finishers, and I'm a finisher. So he said, well, how would you like to lead us? I said, well, hold an election and see what happens. Well, they unanimously elected me to be the expedition leader. So then I was talking to another friend of mine, who I think you probably know, Angelica Whitecliffe, and I said, Angelica, what does all this mean? And she's very intuitive, a star child, brilliant lady. And she says, you know, here's what's going to happen, in my opinion. You're going to get up there about 5 or 6 days into this 13-day expedition, and the captain of this ship is going to turn to you and say, well, we've run the course, Dr. Agnew. Where do we go now? And you're going to know.
In the 1950s, Brooks, Fate magazine issued one of their monthlies that said that UFOs were coming out of the hollow earth like crazy. Remember that?
Yes. Not that I was alive in 1950, but I do remember that article.
When were you born?
I was born in 55.
Well, you were alive in the 50s then.
Well,
you're just too small to read a magazine. That's
too
all.
Small.
Unless you were
couldn't read until 1959.
Junior engineer who knew what he was doing at 9 years old then, or 4 or something like that. Now,